Well, in a few days' time, the 2012-13 federal budget's going to be handed down in Canberra. This year's budget is probably going to be one of the most closely watched in Australia's recent history, because the government has set itself a very ambitious target of delivering a budget surplus in 2012-13. Over the last few years, the government has had to spend a lot of money on fiscal stimulus during the global economic downturn, and that's meant that the budget position has been in a deficit for the last 3 or so years, including the 2011-12 financial year, the current year that we're in right now. This year I'm looking towards the budget very closely to see whether or not the government is going to be using any sneaky accounting tricks to bring forward revenue to try to realise that 2012-13 surplus, or indeed whether they do the opposite, whether they push out expenditure that they should otherwise be incurring in this year out to later years, again to try to get that budget surplus result for this current year. We're also going to be keeping a very close eye on whether or not the cuts that the government might make are too deep and too broad. In other words, we need to be very mindful of the way some business sectors across the Australian economy are performing at the moment. We need to watch very carefully for whether or not the budget cuts go too deep into actually eroding business confidence and taking away stimulus from some parts of the economy that still need it. Industries like the retail sector, the manufacturing sector are going through a structural transformation at the moment. We need to make sure that they are supported through the budget and not hindered through deep cuts that might have a medium or longer term impact on the overall performance across the economy.
The lead up to federal budget every year is always a very interesting time for accountants. Speculation runs about what is going to be in this year's budget and where the emphasis will be. And certainly this particular year is very interesting, as the government is very committed to going back into a budgetary surplus. So I often get asked the question is, well, what is going to be in the budget for superannuation? Interesting thing is, well, I can guarantee there'll be something in there for superannuation. And why? Because there always is. It's actually most unfortunate in respects that superannuation does always form part of the budget. And this government, and certainly previous governments, have always included superannuation as something of a budgetary tool or a tinkering tool as they balance the books for the federal budget. Recent media reports have indicated that the government might be targeting tax for high income earners and superannuation, and it has been proposed, or the idea has been put around, that there will be tax hikes for high income earners on contributions tax as they put more money into superannuation. It's a very interesting area, and it's not one that I would encourage the government to move towards. The problem with tinkering in superannuation is it undermines the confidence of people in the superannuation system. Because it is constantly being tinkered with, people are losing comfort and confidence in the system and worrying that they could put a lot of money in now, but the rules will be very different when they go to retire. And that's always the trade-off in super, is that you put money in and you get access to certain tax concessions. The trade-off is you have to keep the money locked up in superannuation for quite a period of time.